The digital landscape is rarely static, but what we're seeing right now in the microblogging world, it's not just change. It feels more like a chaotic, really dramatic upheaval.
It really does.
Today, we are diving into a corporate identity crisis that has the potential to reshape not just how we all communicate, but what we even call the act of doing it. I mean, this is the ultimate fight for a legacy.
And it's so much more than just a simple rebrand.
Yeah.
What we're observing is this multi-layered succession crisis where one of the most recognized trademarks in the world, the Twitter Bluebird, is being dismantled.
Deliberately dismantled.
Deliberately dismantled, yes. And at the same time, all these competitors are just rushing in to claim the void that's been left behind. You have high-stakes legal maneuvering happening right alongside this incredibly rapid and very volatile migration of users.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The source material you pulled together for this is exceptional. It gives us a real 360-degree view. Our sources detail this dramatic, almost theatrical legal challenge to actually reclaim the Twitter intellectual property.
Right.
But then, at the very same time, we have hard data, real, objective numbers that show which of these competing platforms are actually succeeding, or, maybe more interestingly, failing spectacularly in the messy wake of their rebrand to X.
Exactly. So our mission today is to look at this through two main lenses. You've got the cold, hard facts of trademark law, and then you have the volatile realities of user behavior.
Two very different things.
Totally different. So we're diving into this critical question of whether a brand, once it's been publicly and really intentionally abandoned by its owner, can it be legally seized by a rival?
And maybe even more importantly, what does the collapse of some of these alternatives like Blue Sky tell us about what users really want?
That's the key. What does it tell us about user sentiment, about the cultural toxicity of these platforms, and the actual sustainability of these digital communities? This whole situation is serving as a very critical, very public test of intellectual property law versus public recognition in the modern digital age.
Let's start with the legal drama, because that's where things get really fast. The Bluebird logo, the word Twitter, they may have been forcibly retired by X-Corp, but it seems there are people who are not just nostalgic.
Yeah, not at all.
They are actively trying to resurrect that brand, and they're doing it through the highest levels of intellectual property law.
Right, and we need to introduce the new contender in this legal arena. It's a Virginia-based startup called Operation Bluebird.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It has a very cloak and dagger name, but their operation is, firmly grounded in the very dry, very technical world of trademark law and administrative filing. They are trying to capitalize directly on X-Corp's explicit desire to bury the legacy brand.
And their target is very specific. They're going right to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO. Operation Bluebird filed a petition with them on December 2nd, and their argument is that Elon Musk's X-Corp has legally and intentionally abandoned the Twitter trade. They are, in essence, trying to call a formal legal dibs on the IP that Musk seemingly went to great lengths to just walk away from.
It's a highly calculated, and I'd say pretty ambitious. Operation Bluebird is seeking to cancel the primary trademark for both the word Twitter and the verb tweet.
Even the verb tweet. Wow.
Even the verb. The goal is so they can take possession of them and launch a rival social media platform they've already branded as Twitter.
So this isn't just about launching a similar service. If they succeed, they would legally own the original, globally recognized.
Yes, and that would grant them an instant, unparalleled advantage in brand recognition that typically costs billions of dollars to achieve.
Why build a brand from scratch when you can potentially snatch a globally recognized one for, the cost of filing fees and some legal hours?
Exactly. And the basis for their whole argument relies entirely on X-Corp's own aggressive action, which is the really compelling part of their case.
And that's the abandonment argument.
That's the central pillar, yes. And it stems directly from the company's own messaging, both internal and external, over the past year. Operation Bluebird's filing, they contend that X has systematically and thoroughly eradicated the Twitter brand from all of its products, its services, its marketing materials, everywhere.
And they have specific examples, right?
Oh, they point to several concrete examples of this eradication, which really clearly demonstrate Musk's comprehensive desire to just wipe the slate clean.
And he wasn't exactly quiet about his intentions, was he? The source highlights Musk's own declaration back in 2020.
The one where he said the company would bid adieu to the Twitter brand and gradually all the birds.
Yeah, that is about as explicit as a public confession of intent to abandon a trademark can get, short of, a signed legal affidavit.
It is remarkably explicit. And in an abandonment case, Intent is absolutely crucial. That, quote, serves as powerful, direct evidence that the owner intended to cease commercial use of the mark.
And then there are the physical changes.
The physical changes are impossible to deny. The platform's main address migrated from twitter.com to x.com. And, most visually striking of all, X Corp removed Twitter's famous Bluebird logo.
Probably one of the most recognizable logos on the planet.
Easily. Now, twitter.com still redirects, but the current commercial use of the name and that visual identity has been, well, aggressively dismantled.
But the detail that truly adds a layer of gravity to this challenge is the person behind. The petition was filed by a man named Stephen Coates, Operation Bluebird's general counsel.
And this is the key part.
The source makes a point of noting that Coates, former trademark lawyer.
That background detail is absolutely critical. We just can't overstate it. This is not some random group of entrepreneurs who stumbled upon a loophole. This suggests a very deep, very intimate knowledge of the original trademark filings, their maintenance history, the exact boundaries of the original IP.
He would know everything.
He might even know about internal discussions regarding the inherent legal value of the Twitter brand legacy. This isn't just a random legal filing. This is a calculated legal maneuver. It's being executed by someone who knows precisely where the original company's strengths and now X-Corp's self-inflicted weaknesses lie.
Okay, so now we move into the legal battlefield itself. Because even with Coates' expertise, this still seems like an incredibly complex, high-risk move.
It is.
We are talking about a brand that was the core asset of a $44 billion acquisition in 2022. The intuitive defense, the one I think most people would jump to, is just, well, everybody knows X was Twitter, right? Even after the rebrand.
Of course.
So how can a trademark for something so universally known really be considered abandoned or up for grabs?
And that is the fundamental tension in this case. It's trademark law versus public recognition. While the general public absolutely knows X is the successor to Twitter, trademark law often hinges on the maintenance of continuous commercial use.
Right. Use it or lose it.
Basically. Yeah. Musk bought the company and all its assets, including the trademark, but owning them outright and maintaining their active legal status are two different obligations, especially when the current owner is actively and very publicly trying to extinguish the brand.
Let's explore the legal analogies the source material provides because they really help contextualize the risk. We have this cautionary tale, the TSR analogy.
The infamous TSR legal kerfuffle. This is a perfect historical example of what happens when intellectual property management gets overlooked or, undervalued during a major corporate acquisition.
And this was for Dungeons & Dragons, right?
Yes, it involved the original publisher, Tactical Studies Rule, or TSR. So when Hasbro acquired the D&D property through their subsidiary, Wizards of the Coast, they got all the valuable creative content, the monster manual, the rule books, all the lore. But they reportedly forgot, or just failed, to properly maintain the trademark for the name TSR itself.
So they just let it lapse.
It seems so. Yeah. And the consequence was a massive headache that turned into a significant legal battle. That oversight allowed a third party, someone with no connection to the original creators or the new owners, to legally seize the TSR trademark.
And what did they do with it?
This party then began marketing itself as the true heir to the original D&D levy. And this immediately caused massive consumer confusion, which is the core concern of trademark law.
Right.
It led to extensive legal conflict, and it proved that even if you own the content and all the goodwill, losing control of the name can seriously destabilize your brand equity. It shows that abandonment through inaction is a very real legal peril.
But isn't X-Corp's situation a bit different? With TSR, it sounds like an accidental failure to maintain the mark. With X, Musk made these public declarations of active destruction of the brand.
That's a great point.
Does Operation Bluebird's case get stronger because the abandonment was so intentional and explicit? Or does Musk's intent to transfer the goodwill to the X brand give him a stronger legal shield than has?
And that distinction between accidental oversight and intentional rebrand is precisely where all the legal complexity lies. The sources indicate that while intentional abandonment is powerful evidence for Operation Bluebird, X-Corp is going to argue that they never abandoned the underlying goodwill associated with the mark.
They just changed the sign on the door.
Exactly. They'll say they simply changed the name under which that goodwill operated. They're essentially saying, we rebranded, we didn't walk away from the business entirely.
And that's where the counter analogy comes in, the 20th Century Fox example, which seems to favor Musk's defense.
This analogy is critical, yeah. It highlights the difference between a brand that's truly abandoned and one that's just renamed, but is still actively owned and integrated.
So Disney buys 20th Century Fox.
And they eventually rebranded as 20th Century Studio.
Yeah.
The point here is that you can't just go start another movie studio and call it 20th Century Fox, because Disney still owns all the underlying assets, the back catalog, the corporate entity, and the registered trademark.
Right.
Simply changing the current operating name doesn't automatically make the legacy name available to a third party.
So the central legal debate boils down to whether X-Corp is a TSR, which actively ceased commercial use of a mark, or a 20th Century Fox, which just transitioned a primary operating name while still maintaining the legal IP.
That is the high-value legal nuance right there. I mean,
Right.
X has aggressively tried to bury the Twitter name, which that leans them toward the TSR liability model.
Right.
However, they have a very powerful, very concrete legal defense. X-Corp's 2023 renewal registration for the Twitter trademark was approved last year.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It's a very big. That action demonstrates a formal and relatively recent intent to maintain it.
But what if they simply stopped using it commercially after that 2023 approved, which, aligns with Musk's subsequent Can a company legally just hold on to a mark forever if they don't act?
That's where we turn to the insights of intellectual property experts like Josh Gerben, who analyzed this situation. Gerben noted that X would face real and mounting challenges defending its ownership of the trademark if the company no longer uses them commercially.
So the renewal only buys them so much.
Exactly. If their rebranding is absolute, if they truly eradicate every appearance of Twitter and tweet, they actively undermine their own legal position, it makes that 2023 renewal pretty much irrelevant over time. Yeah. Trademark law fundamentally requires use to justify ownership.
So the very success of Musk's desire to kill the Bluebird brand becomes the primary vulnerability that Operation Bluebird is now exploiting in court.
Precisely.
He achieved the commercial goal of rebrand, but potentially created a fatal legal exposure in the process. It's ironic.
It's deeply ironic. However, Gerben also provided a crucial defensive layer for X. Even if Operation Bluebird successfully gets the trademark canceled, which would be a massive time-consuming victory, X could still try to block the commercial use of the name Twitter.
On what ground?
By arguing things like consumer confusion or residual goodwill in the marketplace. This legal battle won't just end even if Operation Bluebird wins the initial USPTO filing. It'll just move to a different phase.
It sounds like Operation Bluebird's challenge is less about a guaranteed victory and more about forcing X-Corp's hand.
I think so.
Compelling them to invest resources into defending a brand they claim they don't even value more.
That is the strategic brilliance of the filing. Gerben called this challenge an interesting test as to whether or not X will invest in protecting a brand they no longer want to use. It's about leveraging the law to force the owner to spend money and legal effort on a brand they publicly said they wanted to be done with.
Right. If X doesn't defend the mark, they essentially forfeit it through intentional. It puts them in a real bind.
A very real bind.
And to really solidify this idea of continuous use, the source provides a fascinating and maybe unexpected illustration from the world of toy.
This is a fantastic real-world example of how existential continuous commercial use is for maintaining core trade. We as consumers, we might scratch our heads and wonder why companies like Hasbro feel compelled to manufacture and release a new version of Optimus Prime or Megatron or Starscream every single year.
Even when the last one is still on the shelves.
Exactly. Even when the market might not strictly demand it. But there's a very concrete, very defensive legal reason for that constant churn in production.
It's not just a marketing strategy. It's trademark insurance baked right into the product.
That is exactly right. The source suggests this constant yearly manufacturing of core characters is done specifically to prove continuous commercial use and protect those trademarks from abandonment claims.
And this is based on a past mistake.
The motivation for this extreme diligence stems from a past failure. Yes, Hasbro reportedly lost the trademark to the character Megatron.
No way.
Yes, because they went for several years without commercially manufacturing any Megatron toys or products.
Wow. So the moment the commercial use lapses, the trademark becomes vulnerable, even if the IP is otherwise perfectly secure. That is a critical lesson X-Corp.
It illustrates how quickly trademark abandonment can happen through simple lack of commercial activity. For X, this suggests a very clear, very low-cost defense strategy.
What would that be?
Well, they don't have to rebuild the Bluebird app. They could maintain continuous use by simply releasing some retro Twitter merchandise, or by continually referring to the platform in official marketing as X, formerly Twitter.
Even something that small could be enough.
It could be. Even something as simple as designating a section of the X platform as the Twitter archive forum would demonstrate commercial intent to continue using the mark. It's a low bar, but you have to clear it.
So this whole legal gauntlet really just hinges on whether X decides the Twitter brand, the legacy Bluebird, is worth even that minimal, and if they don't.
Operation Bluebird has a real, tangible shot at launching Twitter.new and instantly gaining a 15-year head start on brand.
Okay, here is where the conversation shifts from legal theory to the hard reality. Why bother fighting a complex legal battle for the Twitter name if its closest competitor, the supposedly most promising heir to the microblogging throne, is already collapsing?
Right.
Blue Sky was once heralded as the decentralized, user-friendly alternative that would welcome all the
The story of Blue Sky is just a perfect, almost tragic comic illustration of failed platform platform succession. It perfectly encapsulates the core challenge of trying to recreate the feel and network effect of a successful social network without, importing its fatal problems.
And in Blue Sky's case, it seems they replicated the toxicity far faster than anyone could have anticipated.
Oh.
So let's recall the early day. The source describes that initial experience as feeling like the glory day Twitter, specifically citing the cultural vibe around 2012.
Yeah.
What did that original experience feel like, and why did it attract so many hopeful users?
That specific 2012 era of Twitter was characterized by a focus on, general, lighter, and more diverse interest. The source mentions things like Sunny Cat videos, video game news, webcomics, general conversation.
Normal stuff.
Just normal stuff. It was reportedly not bad at launch, feeling like this blank slate that was waiting for a community to organically form. And crucially, this was the Twitter before the platform's culture became so intensely political and aggressive, before the toxicity of the mid to late 2010s had really set in.
But that promise, it seems to have evaporated almost immediately. The source states the platform is now characterized as having distilled the worst of 2017 and 2018 era Twitter into one plate.
Mm-hmm.
For the listener who might have missed that specific era, what does that cultural diagnosis really mean?
That was the era where Twitter transitioned into what the source calls ground zero for cancel culture.
Right.
It became defined by extremely aggressive political discourse, intense ideological vetting, and the rapid mobilization of users to publicly cancel or shame public figures. Blue Sky, because it lacked the sheer volume and diversity of X, seems to have been disproportionately overtaken by this type of hyper-aggressive, ideologically focused user base almost instantly.
And the core sociological issue, according to the source, is this catastrophic lack of normies to provide a crucial cultural offset.
This is so key to understanding the sociology of massive social networks. A vast, diverse user base, the normies, as the source calls them, or just everyday people posting about benign things like their weekend plans or their coffee or their pets.
The stuff that actually makes up most of life.
Exactly. That acts as an essential cultural buffer. They dilute the intensity of the highly political or aggressive user. Without that balancing act, the platform quickly becomes dominated by the loudest, most extreme voices, creating this feedback loop of aggression that results in rapid platform decay and a fast exodus of casual use.
And the reports suggest Blue Sky fell into a moderation trap, creating an environment that actively drove away anyone who was just looking for a casual, diverse...
The articles cited in the source are quite specific about this cultural shift. The claim is that the platform became so intensely focused that the only way to remain in good graces was to post anti-Trump stuff 247 and anti-IC stuff 247.
Wow.
Which suggests the platform evolved into this intense, hyper-focused political echo chamber that prioritized ideological purity over diverse conversation.
They even cite attempts to cancel high-profile public figures like Mark Hamill and Rob Reiner. These are not typically controversial figures in mainstream circles.
No, not at all. And the sheer frustration from users who had originally migrated to Blue Sky was palpable. They wanted to go back to just talking comics, video games, retro stuff, funny cat videos, but the environment just quickly became saturated with ideological policing and political aggression.
So the platform essentially ate it.
It ate itself. This hyper-aggressive cultural environment, characterized by extreme moderation or over-moderation by the dominant user culture, it fundamentally drove away the very casual users that are needed for long-term growth.
And this cultural implosion, it isn't just based on anecdotes or user complaints. We have solid, hard data backing this up, and the numbers are just staggering.
The data comes from a Forbes report published in November, and it cited findings from SimilarWeb, which is a digital market intelligence company noted for being pretty accurate in tracking these metrics. This gives us a clear, objective view of the platform's decline that goes beyond just sentiment.
Let's define the metric first. The source relies on daily active, or DAU. For listeners unfamiliar, that's just the number of unique users who engage with the platform on a given day. And looking at those DAUs, Sky, the decline, sure.
It is catastrophic. Blue Sky's average daily active users on mobile devices worldwide dropped an incredible 39.8% year over year as of the end of October.
Almost 40.
Almost 40%. To contextualize that, a 40% drop for any established company signals a crisis. For a nascent social network trying to establish market share, it signals near total failure.
And what's even more telling is the context of that drop.
Exactly. This 39.8% decline was noted as being much steeper than the decline seen by other major social networks during the same period. That includes the very platform was trying to replace X. The speed of the implosion is just remarkable.
Let's trace the user timeline based on the numbers show a momentary surge around March 2025. What briefly propelled Blue Sky's numbers then?
Traffic held steady, and it even rose slightly from 5.8 million to about 6 million DAUs around March. The source explicitly links this temporary spike to political left-leaning users migrating after a specific election. alongside some high-profile rollout of new features, including the Doge stuff. So it confirms the platform did succeed in attracting a specific politically active segment that was looking to flee X's changes.
It did. The platform briefly managed to attract a core, motivated group, but then it failed completely at retaining them or expanding beyond them.
And that's where the drop starts.
That's the painful truth the data reveals. The source states that traffic began to plunge every single month afterward, hitting a low of 3.5 million DAUs on mobile.
So they lost almost half their users in just a few months.
It did. This data suggests that the aggressive political culture, the platform eating itself due to a lack of diverse users, it alienated even the users who had initially sought refuge there. They either migrated elsewhere, went back to the known chaos of X, or, I think most likely, just abandoned the microblogging format entirely out of frustration. The essential takeaway from Blue Sky's spectacular collapse seems to be this. Simply replicating the architecture of another platform, even with a decentralized promise, it doesn't guarantee success. If the underlying cultural dynamic, the toxicity, the political intensity are imported without a strong, diverse cultural buffer, the new platform will just decay fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this pattern of mass migration, fragmentation, and rapid decline, it tells us something profound about what users are really looking for and perhaps what they're most desperate to escape.
Yeah.
The market is demonstrably not consolidating around a single successor. It is actively specializing and fracturing into these highly distinct silos.
Okay, so let's compare the performance across. We established Blue Sky saw a nearly 40%. Let's use that as our metric of disaster and compare it to X. How did the original platform fare?
X, formerly Twitter, it certainly saw a decline, but it was far less dramatic. It was down approximately 13% year over year in daily active users on mobile.
Isn't good, but compared to almost...
It's nothing. While X is undoubtedly shrinking, its decline rate is only about 1/3 of Blue Sky's. This reinforces the idea that X retains a significant, really sticky core user base, perhaps due to its unmatched network effect for certain industries like journalism and finance, despite all the rebrands and controversies.
But the real quiet victor in this succession battle isn't Operation Bluebird fighting for a name, Blue Sky failing to launch a culture. It's Threads.
Absolutely. The Meta-owned, text-based platform Threads is the unexpected market leader, right? It saw a significant 53% surge in average daily active users over the same period.
A 53% surge.
A surge. And critically, the data shows that it has already overtaken X in this key metric. This is the strongest objective indicator of where the mainstream casual user base has migrated for text-based communication.
That is a massive number, especially for a new platform. What analysis does the source offer as to why Threads is dominating so quietly?
Threads benefits immeasurably from the Meta ecosystem. It's essentially providing an all-in-one solution that requires almost zero friction for adoption.
Right. If you have Instagram, you basically have Threads.
You're one click away. It leverages its massive connection to Instagram and Facebook. And while Facebook might feel less culturally dominant than it once did, Instagram is still highly active and successful, and crucially, less politically charged than these microblogging platforms. Threads successfully tapped into that existing, massive, non-toxic Instagram user base.
It's the ultimate frictionless integration. You don't have to rebuild your identity, your friend list, your audience. You just port your existing Instagram identity.
That is the network effect weaponized. And here's perhaps the most interesting sociological observation about Threads. Despite this major surge, despite overtaking X in daily active users, the source notes that nobody talks about Threads.
That's so true. You never hear about it.
Never. And this signals a quiet, highly functional user migration. It's a silent success where people use the platform for its utility, for conversation, and for its network, rather than for generating constant drama or meta-commentary about the platform itself. It's the direct opposite of Blue Sky, which was constantly generating negative chatter before it even imploded.
Now let's turn to the other success story in this fragment, the ultimate niche platform, Truth Social. This platform also saw substantial, sustained growth during the same period.
Donald Trump's social media platform grew a substantial 32% in average daily users on mobile devices. This is a significant growth rate, placing it well ahead of X's decline.
But the context of that growth is very specific, right?
It's unique, yes. The source notes that traffic for Truth Social varies widely month to month and appears to spike almost exclusively after Trump makes major announcements or following specific political events.
So it's not functioning as a general interest social network where you check in multiple times a day for, cat videos and game news.
No, not at all. It is characterized primarily as Trump's personal blog. Its purpose is highly specific, almost purely political, and driven by external events. It exists, as the source points out, because Trump was booted off of every other platform.
So it's a destination of necessity.
A destination of necessity for a specific, focused political community rather than a general interest destination for the broader public. It just reinforces that theme of specialization and fragmentation.
So if Threads is the big ecosystem winner and Truth Social is the niche, why did Blue Sky, which offered this idealistic vision of decentralization, fail so spectacularly, so fast?
Blue Sky's failure is rooted in a fundamental conceptual error about its own core promise. The original intention was profound, to be a truly decentralized version of Twitter, where users could set up their own distinct instances, control their own moderation rules, and essentially run their own digital communities.
Sort of like installing a forum on a private server where you control all the rules in the environment?
That's perfect. It's true user empowerment and control, designed specifically to avoid the centralized moderation chaos we see on every other major platform.
It was the promise of freedom.
It was. But the source argues that the huge mistake was that Blue Sky basically just replicated Twitter in its architecture and user experience instead of implementing true user-controlled decentralization.
So they just built another walled garden.
They offered a centralized product with slightly different cultural rules, which meant they recreated the exact centralized pain points of scale, moderation, and ideological dominance that drove users away from the original Bluebird in the first place.
So across all these platforms, people fleeing X, people abandoning Blue Sky, people migrating to Threads, the common driver of change, deep, pervasive fatigue with the system.
Exactly. The source identifies a growing exhaustion with existing platforms due to the constant, suffocating tension created by moderation or lack of moderation or over-moderation.
It's a no-win situation.
It is. Users are tired of their platforms being either too tightly controlled, resulting in those ideological echo chambers, or too chaotic and aggressive, resulting in toxicity. They feel like they've lost control of their own digital space.
And what the user data and the Blue Sky failure really articulate is the fundamental desire of the modern social media. What are people actually looking for in a replacement?
They want alternatives where they can talk to their friends, share lighthearted content, and build a positive community without the constant interference of the freaking village idiot popping into my mansion.
That is a very vivid phrase.
It's a powerful phrase, and it captures the deep psychological and cultural costs of these centralized, open platforms. Centralization enables the worst actors, the trolls, the antagonists, the overly aggressive political act, to invade and ruin a conversational environment at will. That intrusion is the breaking point for millions of users.
So the invasion of that digital mansion is enabled by the architecture of the centralized platform itself. The constant ping of negativity and ideological policing is essentially a design flaw of the modern social network structure.
Absolutely. This source implies that the failure isn't in the users or even the content necessarily, but in the platform design that mandates total interconnected. If every person can comment on every thread, if every toxic actor can find the most vulnerable community, the environment just inevitably collapses.
And this is why the source suggests a specific and pretty radical path forward.
It is. The future prediction is clear. A successful solution will involve a truly decentralized web where individuals are responsible for their own hosting and moderation.
So this isn't just about installing a different centralized app. It's a fundamental change to the architecture of interaction.
A fundamental change. If you, the user, host your own sphere, you set the rules, you enforce the moderation, you control who gets to pop into your mansion, you regain digital sovereignty.
That vision is such a radical departure from the giant tech monolith all currently. The source implies that decentralization isn't just a technical preference anymore. It's becoming a psychological necessity driven by this cultural exhaustion.
It is a necessity. The social contract on the centralized platforms has completely broken down. The constant drama over who owns the trademark, which new app is canceling whom, or which group is dominating the discourse, all of that is merely background noise to the actual overwhelming user fatigue. The decentralized model offers the only true structural escape from that centralized cycle of platform rise, inevitable toxicity, and subsequent cultural collapse.
We've had a really extensive deep dive today covering the full spectrum of the succession crisis. We've seen Operation Bluebird trying to legally seize a massive abandoned trademark. We've analyzed the rapid and dramatic cultural failure of Scott's alternative.
And we've seen the market fragment into these highly stable ecosystems like Threads and focused niche platforms like Truth Social.
And through all this movement and data, a clear and crucial pattern emerges for you, the learner. The fight over who owns the name or the Bluebird logo may be less important than the simple fact that users are getting profoundly tired of the entire.
And the toxic, aggressive culture that these centralized platforms inevitably breed. The focus shifts from the technology itself to the societal and the psychological cost of mass.
So What does this all mean for you, the learner, as you navigate this fractured social landscape?
I think the final implication is that the core issue isn't the technology or even the brand name, Twitter, X, or anything else, but the centralized culture that develops when mass communication is architected for maximum reach rather than for maximum community health.
Right.
The true test for future communication platforms won't be their feature set or their ability to scale to billion. It'll be their ability to foster communities that are resistant to the cultural toxicity that killed the Bluebird in the blue sky. They have to figure out how to keep the village idiot out of the mansion.
And on that note, the source material leaves us with a provocative thought that really puts the last decade of social networking into a very sharp focus.
It does. The source concludes by characterizing social media itself not just as a tool or a neutral network, but as a potential virus or even a weapon of mass destruction, affecting our intellect, our emotions, our psyche, and our general well-being.
Oh.
And this raises a fundamental and really important question that goes beyond the success of Threads or the failure of Blue Sky. In a world where every replacement platform seems to inevitably recreate the political intensity and cultural toxicity of the original, is the ultimate goal for millions of fatigued users simply to ditch social media completely.
Just opt out.
Just opt out, recognizing that perhaps the core product itself is fundamentally flawed. Perhaps the true future trend is not succession to a new centralized platform, but the absolute cessation of the centralized social experience.